The cold air of the early morning crept into the shelter. It was the time before the sun, when the world was painted in shades of grey and deep blue. Kyle, the leader of the tribe, was already awake. His eyes, accustomed to the dim light, scanned the sleeping forms of his people. Today was an important day. Today they would hunt. The stores of dried meat were running low, and the chill in the air promised a long, hard winter ahead. He nudged his son, a young boy named Yorick, who was learning the ways of the hunters. It was time to prepare. The success of the tribe depended on the strength and skill of its hunters, and every hunt was a test of their courage and cooperation. Outside the main shelter, a small fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the faces of the men who gathered around it. They were checking their weapons. Spears with sharp, flaked stone points were the most important tools. Each man inspected his own spear carefully. A loose binding or a cracked shaft could mean disaster during the hunt. They ran their thumbs over the sharpened edges of the flint, feeling for any imperfections. They spoke in low tones, their voices a soft murmur in the pre-dawn quiet. They discussed the tracks they had seen the day before, signs of a herd of mammoths moving through the valley. It would be a dangerous hunt, but the reward would be great. The women and older children were also busy. They were preparing the supplies for the hunting party. They filled leather pouches with dried berries and nuts, a small amount of food to sustain the hunters on their long journey. They also gathered extra lengths of sinew and leather straps, essential for repairs or for carrying back the heavy meat. There was an unspoken rhythm to their work, a shared understanding of what needed to be done. Everyone had a role to play in the survival of the group. The hunt was not just the work of the men. It was a collective effort that involved every member of the tribe, from the youngest child to the oldest elder. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, painting the sky with pale streaks of orange and pink, the hunting party was ready. Kyle stood before his men. He held his spear high, a silent signal of their purpose. He looked at each hunter, his gaze firm and reassuring. They were a team, a brotherhood bound by a shared need to provide for their families. They were strong, and they were ready. With a final nod, Kyle turned and led the way out of the camp, their figures disappearing into the vast, silent wilderness. The fate of the tribe rested on their shoulders as they began their solemn journey into the wild. The hunters moved as one, their footsteps soft on the damp earth. They entered the great forest, a world of towering trees and thick undergrowth. A heavy fog clung to the ground, swirling around their legs like a ghostly river. The air was cool and smelled of wet leaves and rich soil. Visibility was low, and the familiar landscape was transformed into a mysterious and uncertain path. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret, and every sound was magnified in the dense, misty air. The hunters relied on their keen senses, their ears twitching at the snap of a twig, their eyes straining to see through the thick white veil that surrounded them. Kale led the way, his body attuned to the forest's subtle language. He knew this land like the back of his hand, but the fog made everything different. It demanded extra caution. He signaled to his men with quiet hand gestures, telling them to stay close and be alert. A lone hunter could easily get lost in this disorienting mist. The group moved in a single file, a silent chain of figures navigating the ancient woods. They stepped over gnarled roots that snaked across the path and ducked under low-hanging branches, heavy with moisture. The silence was broken only by the drip of water from the leaves and the distant call of a bird hidden in the canopy above. Young Yorick walked just behind his father, his heart a mixture of excitement and fear. This was one of his first major hunts, and the forest felt immense and powerful. He tried to walk as quietly as his father, placing his feet carefully to avoid making noise. He watched every move Kale made, learning how to read the signs of the forest. He saw how his father noticed a bent blade of grass, a faint track in the mud, a broken branch. These were the clues that told the story of the animals that had passed this way. The fog made it harder, but it also taught him the importance of paying attention to every small detail. After what felt like hours, the fog began to thin. The sun, now higher in the sky, started to burn through the mist, sending golden shafts of light down through the trees. The world slowly came into focus, revealing the true scale of the forest. The trees were ancient giants, their trunks wider than a man could reach around. The air grew warmer, and the sounds of the forest became clearer. The hunters paused, taking a moment to get their bearings now that they could see further. They had successfully navigated the misty labyrinth. Their journey was far from over, but they had passed the first test of the day. Back at the camp, life continued its steady rhythm, guided by the wisdom of the women. While the hunters were away, the camp was a domain of teaching and nurturing. An older woman named Lyra sat with a group of young children, her patient hands guiding theirs. She was showing them how to identify useful plants. She held up a green leaf with a distinctive shape. She explained that its roots were good to eat when cooked. She then pointed to another plant nearby, one with bright red berries, and warned them that it was poisonous. The children listened intently, their young minds absorbing the knowledge that had been passed down through countless generations. Mothers taught their daughters the essential skills of survival. A young girl named Ilara sat beside her mother, Mara, learning to scrape a deer hide. Mara showed her how to use a sharpened stone scraper to remove all the flesh and fat from the skin. It was hard work, requiring strength and precision. A slip of the tool could tear the valuable hide. Mara demonstrated the correct angle and pressure, her movements fluid and practiced. Ilara watched closely, then took the scraper and tried for herself. Her first attempts were clumsy, but her mother offered gentle encouragement, correcting her grip and showing her the rhythm of the work. The lessons were not just about work, they were also about creativity and resourcefulness. Another group of women sat together, weaving baskets from flexible reeds they had gathered by the river. Their fingers moved with practiced speed, interlacing the strands to create strong, durable containers for gathering nuts and berries. They taught the older children the weaving patterns, starting them on small, simple baskets. These skills were vital. A well-made basket could carry enough food to feed a family for days. The act of creating something useful with their own hands was a source of pride and a fundamental part of their identity. The children also learned through play. They mimicked the actions of the adults. The boys would have mock hunts with small wooden spears, chasing each other through the camp and practicing their aim on fallen logs. The girls would play at setting up a small camp, gathering sticks for a pretend fire and using leaves as plates. This play was not just for fun, it was a form of education. It prepared them for the roles they would one day take on as adults. The mothers watched over them, their hearts full of hope for the future of their tribe, a future that was being shaped in these moments of learning and play. The hunters had been tracking the herd for 2 days. They finally found them in a wide open plain bordered by a steep cliff. The mammoths were magnificent creatures, giants of the Ice Age with long curved tusks and thick, shaggy coats. Their sheer size was intimidating. A single, angry mammoth could easily crush a man. Kyle gathered his hunters behind a rocky outcrop to discuss the plan. They could not attack the herd directly. That would be suicide. They needed a strategy, one that used the landscape to their advantage. Their survival depended on their intelligence and their ability to work together as a perfectly coordinated team. Kyle's plan was to separate a single mammoth from the herd, preferably a younger one that was less experienced. They would use fire and noise to create panic and confusion. A few hunters were sent to circle around the herd, staying downwind to avoid being detected. They carried torches made from dry branches and bundles of leaves. The main group of hunters, armed with their sharpest spears, positioned themselves between the herd and the cliff. They would wait for the signal. The tension was immense. Every hunter knew the risks. Their hearts pounded in their chests, but their faces were set with determination. At Kale's signal, the flankers lit their torches. They ran towards the herd, shouting and waving the burning branches. The mammoths, startled by the sudden appearance of fire and noise, began to panic. The herd trumpeted in alarm and started to move away from the threat. In the chaos, a young mammoth became separated from its mother. This was the moment the hunters had been waiting for. The main group of hunters emerged from their hiding places, forming a wall of bodies and spears, guiding the frightened animal towards the edge of the cliff. They yelled and waved their arms, making themselves seem larger and more threatening. The young mammoth, trapped between the wall of hunters and the terrifying drop, grew desperate. It charged, but the hunters held their ground, their spears pointed forward. They did not throw their weapons yet. They used them to create a barrier, a fence of sharp points that the mammoth would not cross. Step by step, they forced the animal closer to the precipice. Finally, with nowhere else to go, the mammoth stumbled at the edge and fell over the cliff. The hunters watched in silence as it tumbled down. There was no cheer of victory, only a sense of relief and solemn respect for the great beast whose life would now sustain their own. As dusk settled over the land, the tribe gathered around the central hearth fire. The flames leaped and danced, casting a warm orange glow on the faces of the people. The fire was the heart of the camp, a source of warmth, light, and safety. It kept the chill of the night at bay and frightened away predators that might be lurking in the darkness. The air was filled with the comforting smell of wood smoke and roasting meat. The successful return of the hunters meant there was plenty of food for everyone. The sound of happy chatter and laughter replaced the tense silence of the day. The preparation of the evening meal was a communal activity. Women cut choice pieces of mammoth meat and skewered them on green sticks to roast over the fire. The sizzling sound and delicious aroma made everyone's mouth water. Children ran back and forth, bringing more wood for the fire and helping to turn the roasting meat. Elders, their faces etched with the lines of many winters, shared stories with the young ones. They spoke of past hunts, of brave ancestors, and of the spirits of the land. These stories were the tribe's history, their connection to the past, and their guide for the future. After the meal, the atmosphere grew even more relaxed. People leaned back against the warm rocks, or lay on soft animal furs, their bellies full and their spirits content. This was a time for connection and community. A man took out a flute carved from a bird bone and began to play a simple haunting melody. The soft notes floated through the night air, a peaceful soundtrack to the evening. Some of the women hummed along, their voices blending with the flute's song. It was a moment of pure, simple joy, a brief respite from the constant struggle for survival. Even in these moments of rest, the tribe was not idle. Some people worked on small tasks by the light of the fire. A woman mended a tear in a leather tunic using a bone needle and sinew thread. A man sharpened a stone knife, its rhythmic scraping sound a familiar part of the evening's chorus. The children, tired from a day of play, eventually fell asleep, curled up close to their parents. The fire slowly died down to glowing embers, and one by one the people retired to their shelters, their hearts full of gratitude for the food they had eaten and the warmth of their community. The creation of tools was a skill held in the highest regard within the tribe. It was, an art form that blended knowledge, patience, and physical strength. In a quiet corner of the camp, a man named Borin sat with a large piece of flint held between his knees. He was a master tool maker, and his hands, though calloused and scarred, moved with incredible precision. He held a smaller, harder stone, a hammerstone, and with a series of sharp, controlled strikes, he began to shape the flint. With each strike, a flake of stone would break away, revealing the sharp edge hidden within the rock. Borin was not just making a tool, he was continuing a tradition that stretched back into the mists of time. He had learned this skill from his father, just as his father had learned it from his. Now, Borin was teaching his own apprentice, a young boy who watched his every move with wide, curious eyes. Borin explained how to choose the right kind of stone, one without cracks or flaws. He showed the boy how to strike the flint at the perfect angle to create a long, sharp flake that could be used as a knife or a spearhead. It was a slow and deliberate process that required intense concentration. The workshop was littered with the evidence of his craft. Piles of discarded stone flakes, byproducts of the tool-making process, covered the ground. Some of these smaller flakes were not wasted. The women and older children would gather them and use them for smaller tasks, like scraping hides or cutting leather cords. Every piece of the stone was valuable. The tribe's survival depended on their ability to make the most of every resource. A well-made stone axe could fell a tree for firewood, and a sharp flint knife could butcher a large animal, providing food and materials for the entire group. Once the spearhead was shaped, the work was not yet finished. Borin carefully attached it to a long, straight shaft of wood. He used strips of wet sinew to bind the stone point tightly to the wood. As the sinew dried, it would shrink and harden, creating an incredibly strong bond. He then smeared a mixture of pine resin and beeswax over the bindings to make them waterproof and even more secure. The finished spear was a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering, light, strong, and deadly. It was a tool born from the earth, shaped by human hands, and destined to help the tribe endure. Survival in the prehistoric world was a constant battle against the elements. The tribe was nomadic, following the herds and the changing seasons, and their journey was filled with obstacles. One of the greatest challenges was crossing a wide, fast-flowing river that cut through the landscape. The water was icy cold, and the current was strong enough to sweep a person off their feet. Kyle, the leader, had to find a safe way for his people to cross, especially the children and the elders. He walked along the riverbank, searching for a place where the water was shallower and the current was less fierce. After much searching, Kyle found a suitable spot. The men entered the water first, forming a human chain to brace against the current. They held onto each other's hands, creating a living barrier that would break the force of the water. The women, carrying the small children on their backs, carefully made their way across, using the line of men for support. The older children and elders followed, their faces grim with concentration. The crossing was slow and dangerous. The cold water numbed their legs, and the slippery rocks on the riverbed threatened to trip them. But they worked together, helping and encouraging one another until everyone was safely on the other side. Another formidable challenge was the weather. One winter, a sudden, violent snowstorm descended upon the plains. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, and the snow fell so thick and fast that it was impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. The tribe was caught in the open, far from the shelter of their winter caves. They had to act quickly to survive. Kyle ordered them to build emergency shelters. They used the large bones and tusks of mammoths from a previous hunt to create a frame, and then they stretched heavy animal hides over it, weighing them down with rocks and snow to create a sturdy, wind-proof dome. Inside the makeshift shelter, huddled together for warmth, the tribe waited out the storm. The fire was kept small to conserve wood, but its warmth was a lifeline. For days, the storm raged outside, trapping them in their cramped quarters. Food was rationed, and the mood was somber. It was a stark reminder of their vulnerability in the face of nature's power. But even in this difficult time, their spirit did not break. The elders told stories to distract the children, and the people shared what little food they had. When the storm finally passed and the sun emerged, they dug themselves out of the snow, their bond strengthened by the trial they had endured together. Among the tribe, there was one person who walked a path between the world of humans and the world of spirits. This was Zola, the shaman. She was an old woman, and her eyes held a wisdom that seemed to come from a place beyond the everyday. She was the keeper of the tribe's spiritual life, the one who interpreted dreams and omens, and the one who led their most important rituals. Her role was as vital to the tribe's survival as the sharpest spear, for she provided hope, meaning, and a sense of connection to the great mysteries of the universe. One evening, as the full moon cast a silvery light over the camp, Zola prepared for a special ceremony. It was a ritual to honor the spirit of the mammoth they had hunted and to ask for future success and protection. She painted her face with red ochre and charcoal, creating patterns that symbolized her connection to the spirit world. She wore a necklace of animal teeth and a cloak made from the feathers of a great eagle. The tribe gathered in a circle around her, their faces serious and respectful. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the low, rhythmic beat of a drum played by one of the elders. Zola began to chant, her voice a low, mesmerizing hum that seemed to rise and fall with the flickering of the flames. She danced slowly around the fire, her movements telling the story of the hunt, of the great mammoth's life and its sacrifice. She held up a mammoth tusk, offering it to the sky, to the moon, and to the four corners of the earth. She was speaking to the spirits, thanking them for their gift of food and asking for their continued benevolence. Through her dance and her chant, she wove a powerful spell of gratitude and hope that enveloped the entire tribe. As the ritual reached its peak, Zola fell into a deep trance. Her body swayed, and she spoke in a voice that was not her own, delivering a vision to her people. She spoke of a green valley, a place of good hunting and plentiful water that lay beyond the next mountain range. She told them that the spirits guided them there, to a new home where they would prosper. When she finally emerged from her trance, she was exhausted, but her eyes shone with certainty. The tribe listened to her words with absolute faith. The shaman's vision gave them a direction, a purpose, and the courage to face the long journey that lay ahead. In the heart of the valley that the shaman had foretold, the tribe established their new camp. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, nestled between a winding river and a sheer cliff face that offered protection from the wind. The cliff wall was a canvas waiting for a story. In the evenings, after the work was done, the tribe's artist would mix coloured earth with animal fat to create paints. By the flickering light of torches, he would paint scenes on the cave wall, images of the great mammoth hunt, of the animals they shared the land with, and of the human figures who had brought them to life. This art was more than decoration. It was their memory, their history, and their legacy. The days were filled with a rhythm of life that was both challenging and deeply rewarding. The hunters ventured out, their knowledge of the new territory growing with each passing day. The women and children foraged in the rich forest, their baskets overflowing with berries, mushrooms, and edible roots. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the camp as they played games, their small worlds filled with adventure and discovery. They were learning the skills they would need to survive, not through formal lessons, but through the simple act of living alongside their elders, absorbing the culture and wisdom of their people. Leadership and community were the threads that held the fabric of their society together. Kyle, the leader, made decisions not with absolute power, but through consultation with the elders and the heads of the families. Every voice was heard, and every concern was considered. This collective approach ensured that the tribe moved forward as one, united in purpose. They built sturdy shelters from mammoth bones and hides, worked together to process the meat from successful hunts, and shared their resources so that no one went hungry. Their strength was not in individual prowess, but in their unwavering commitment to each other. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the valley, a panoramic view of the camp revealed a living tapestry of human endeavour. The smoke from the cooking fires rose into the evening sky, a signal of life and community in the vast wilderness. People gathered, shared food, told stories, and cared for one another. They were a small, fragile flame in a wild and often unforgiving world. Yet in their unity, their resourcefulness, and their deep connection to the land and to each other, they not only survived, but thrived. They were a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a story of survival written on the land and painted on the walls of time itself.